Today, we're diving into the amazing story of how nursing completely transformed itself, going from just a set of tasks to a really deep and powerful science. This is all about the big ideas that literally changed patient care forever. So, let me ask you, what is nursing, really? When you think of a nurse, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Is it giving shots? Checking vital signs? Maybe that comforting presence when you're not feeling well? And yeah, that's all part of it, for sure. But the real engine driving modern nursing, it's something you can't even see. It's the thinking, it's the science. Nursing is built on this incredible legacy of theories and ideas that have been shaping and reshaping how we look at health for more than 150 years. So today, we're going to follow that entire journey, right from its very first spark all the way to the complex challenges we face now. So where do we even begin with a story like that? Well, we have to go back to the middle of the 19th century with one single, totally revolutionary idea that laid the groundwork for everything that came after. All right, let's put the first pin on our timeline, the 1860s. This is what we'll call the foundation. It's where the whole concept of professional nursing really starts to take shape. And the architect of this whole thing, Florence Nightingale. But here's the thing you have to remember. She was way more than just a caregiver. She was a brilliant statistician, a social reformer, and really nursing's first great theorist. Her core idea was an absolute game changer at the time. She said that a patient's environment, the air, the light, the cleanliness, directly affects how well they recover. All of a sudden, nursing wasn't just about making people comfortable, it was about strategically changing their world to help them heal. So Nightingale basically kicks the door wide open. And in the 100 years or so that followed, the profession just exploded. And that led to a brand new, really critical question. If a nurse wasn't just a doctor's assistant, then what exactly was their unique role in taking care of a patient? And that question brings us to our next point on the timeline. Let's jump ahead to the 1950s, an era you could call the search for identity. This was a huge moment where nurses started to define in a scientific way what made their contribution to healthcare so special. Now, what's so fascinating here is you have these two brilliant thinkers tackling that same question from completely different angles. On one hand, you have Hildegard Peplau, who said it's all about the relationship between the nurse and the patient, a structured therapeutic process. Then, just a few years later, Virginia Henderson comes along and focuses on the goal, helping the patient get their independence back across 14 basic life activities. You see the shift? The focus moved from the patient's room to the patient themselves. Okay, so this new focus on identity and purpose, it just set off this creative explosion in the field. By the 1970s, you had nursing theorists thinking way bigger, building these huge, comprehensive frameworks to try and explain the entirety of nursing. And that lands us in the 1970s on our timeline, the era of grand theories. I mean, these were ambitious. They were these massive, all-encompassing models that tried to create a complete blueprint for how a nurse should act in pretty much any situation. And almost all of these big theories were built on a kind of shared DNA, what's known as the nursing meta-paradigm. Just think of these four concepts as the core questions every theory had to answer. Who is the person getting the care? What's their environment like? What's our goal for their health? And what exactly is the act of nursing itself? Let's look at a classic example from this time, Dorothea Orum's self-care deficit theory. The key insight here is just so elegant and simple. A nurse is needed when a person can't take care of themselves anymore. And the goal isn't to just take over everything forever, no. It's to bridge that gap until the person can get back on their feet and manage their own health again. And here's how Orum made it super practical. She laid out 3 ways a nurse can step in. In some cases, the nurse provides total care. She called that wholly compensatory. Or maybe the nurse and patient share the load in a partially compensatory system. And finally, in the supportive educative system, the nurse is more of a teacher, empowering the patient to do their own care. It's this incredible, flexible approach that changes as the patient's needs change. Okay, so we've got these big, grand theories that act like a map for patient care. But how does a nurse actually use that map in the chaos of the real world? In a specific moment with a unique patient, how do they know the right thing to do? Well, it turns out nursing knowledge is a lot more than just science. So in 1978, a researcher named Barbara Carper published this landmark paper that just completely changed the conversation. She made the case that expert nurses actually use several different patterns of knowing. And what her work showed was that being a great nurse isn't just about what you know from a textbook, but how you know it. I mean, just look at this toolkit. A nurse uses empirical knowing. That's the science, the facts, the data. But they also use aesthetic knowing. That's the art, the intuition, the gut feeling that lets them see the whole person, not just the chart. Then there's personal knowing, which is all about self-awareness, knowing your own biases. Ethical knowing helps them navigate those really tough moral choices. And finally, emancipatory knowing. This is about seeing the bigger picture, recognizing the social and political issues that can prevent someone from being healthy in the first place. Now, that last one, emancipatory knowing, I know, it can sound a little abstract, but let me tell you a powerful, real-world story that shows you exactly what it looks like when nurses put it into practice. Okay, so get this. Back in 1955, there was this terrible industrial poisoning incident in Japan, where thousands of babies got sick from contaminated formula. Officially, the government said the case was resolved. But fast forward 14 years. Public health nurses, doing their regular home visits, started noticing something strange, a pattern of ongoing mysterious health problems in teenagers. They were the detectives who connected the dots, realizing these were the babies from that incident years ago, still suffering. It was their work, their careful documentation and relentless advocacy that uncovered the truth and ultimately forced the creation of a lifelong support system for the victims. That's emancipatory knowing in action. And that story brings us right back around to today. So how has this incredible journey, from Nightingale's focus on the room to Carper's different ways of knowing, how has all of that shaped what nursing science is doing right now? Well, those foundational ideas didn't just stay in textbooks. They've actually scaled up to influence national policy. Today, you have organizations like the National Institute of Nursing Research, or the NINR, that funds the science that's tackling some of the most complex health challenges we face. And this slide just perfectly illustrates how far the thinking has come. Just look at the NINR's current priorities: health equity, social determinants of health, population health. Do you see it? These are the direct descendants of the theories we've been talking about. This is nursing science working on the biggest possible stage, looking at the systems and social structures that determine the health of entire communities. So, when you step back and look at it, in just over a century, nursing has gone from focusing on a patient's clean sheets to focusing on the health of entire populations. The journey from task to theory, from science to art, has been absolutely remarkable. And it really makes you wonder, as our world keeps changing, what's going to be nursing's next big idea? What will redefine care for the century to come?